Hi, boys and girls. So today you're going to continue working on character change and identifying different ways that characters change over time. One of the things that I'm going to show you here is an example of um, how you can annotate text using just regular technology tools in Google Slides and some strategies of how to identify those character changes. So right here you see where it says highlight a turning point for the character in the story. So when we say turning point, it means a change. Like when is a part in the story where the character, changes, routes of the decisions they're making, or the feelings that they're having, or the actions that they're taking. So that's what it's referring to there. So you're looking for the specific part in the story where things kind of change or take a turn. Then we're going to circle the words that describe the character using the red circles to describe them before the change, and then the green circles to describe them after they've made a change. So this is just an idea that you can use when you are annotating text or taking notes on text in a virtual world or online. So let's go ahead and read the story first. Is the first thing you're going to do. And then I'm going to kind of think about, in general, some of those changes. And then we'll go back and read the story a second time to be able to annotate it. So this story is called To Be or Not to Be. Sophia walked into the drama room with her eyes on the ground and her hands in her pockets. She couldn't believe her mom was making her try out for the school play. During trials, she did her best to act terribly and sing off-key. Even still, she got a part in the play singing and dancing in the background. She knew it was just a consolation part. On the first day of practice, she stood in the back with droopy shoulders and barely uttered a sound. On Friday, after a long week of practice, a group of kids in the play invited her out for ice cream. She tried to come up with an excuse not to go, but she couldn't think of anything. As she sat around the table of laughing kids and drippy cones, she looked around. Maybe this won't be so bad after all, she thought to herself. On Monday, she decided to pay closer attention during practice. Soon, she realized that these songs were actually pretty catchy, and the dance moves were straight out of a movie she loved. By show night, Sophia was a shining star, hip-hopping across the stage and singing at the top of her lungs. As Sophia left the theater after the final show, the director put his arm around her shoulder and said, "I sure hope we see you for auditions at our next production." Sophie smiled and quietly laughed. "I wouldn't miss it," she thought to herself. All right, so I'm going to go back into the story before I start typing here, and I'm going to look for that turning point. So in my head, I'm thinking it could be in a couple different places, but I really want to focus in on where did the first change take place. So if I go back to that second paragraph, where it says she tried to come up with an excuse not to go, but she couldn't think of anything. I feel like she's still apprehensive about wanting to be part of this drama, team, and she's not really sure still. And as she sat around the table of laughing kids and drippy cones, she looked around. Okay, so I'm kind of like, oh, what is she gonna do? Maybe this won't be so bad after all, she thought to herself. So, in my eyes, I think that definitely was the first turning point when she decided that this wasn't going to be that bad after all, thinking to herself. And you can extend that highlighting out. And then she decided to pay closer attention during practice and so on and so forth. But definitely the first thing that was different was her having those positive thoughts of it not being so bad. So now I'm going to go back in the story. I'm going to read again, and I'm going to look for the words that describe the character that happened before that turning point, before the highlighting. So Sophia walked in the drama room with her eyes on the ground and her hands in her pockets. She couldn't believe her mom was making her try out for the school play. So I'm going to put words that describe the character. I'm going to say her eyes to the ground. I think that describes her as being kind of shy and apprehensive, that she's not sure, or, frustrated maybe even. And then her hands are in her pockets. I'm gonna put that describes, kind of how she's acting. making her try out for the school play. During trials, she did her best to act terribly and sing off-key. Even still, she got a part in the play, singing and dancing in the background. So I also think that part where it says she did her best to act terribly and sing off key, because that describes that she's not willing to really try new things, not step out of the box. She was uncomfortable, obviously. She was frustrated with her mom for making her do this. She stood in the back with droopy shoulders. I definitely think that word droopy and shoulders, that should be one, but since it's there. Barely uttered a sound. After a long week of practice, a group of kids invited her to play. She tried to come up with an excuse. So I don't think that describes that she's not very social, maybe, that she's, not really sure about hanging out with other people. Then I'm going to go ahead. I think that's a good amount of things that describe her in the beginning. And then when I look at after the change, though, on Monday she decided to pay closer attention. So I definitely think that's different than the beginning that describes her. So she begins to pay closer attention during practice. She realized that songs were actually pretty, sorry, I'm going to move that up a little bit, pretty catchy, and the dance moves were straight out of a movie she loved. So Sophia was a shining star. I'm going to highlight or circle that, hip-hopping across the stage and singing at the top of her lungs. So it shows that she's becoming much more confident and loving what she's doing. The director put his arm, and I sure hope we see you at audition. Sophia smiled and quietly left. I wouldn't miss it, she says. So Sophia smiled, so she's obviously happy in the end. All right, so then what I'm going to do, now that I've noted the text, noted the change, I can see the visual change, I'm going to go over here to this box and I'm going to type. So it's identify how the characters change over time. So what a lot of people like to do is they like to just say the character went from being scared to not scared, or happy or sad to happy, or are upset to happy. You definitely need to be more specific in telling me, and also pulling in those details. So you want to start off with telling me not like the or she, but specific. So Sophia is the main character, and so Sophia was nervous, and I call the word apprehensive about joining the drama. I'm going to call it a club. The drama club. We know this because I shouldn't say we. I know this because, so this is a good thing for you to add for your details stem. I know this because she had her hands in her pockets and did her best to act terribly. The text also states that she had droopy shoulders. Okay, notice all the details, and I haven't even got to the turning point yet. And then you're going to say something like, a little ways into the story, Sophia took a turn in her attitude toward the club. I know this because, and you'll notice that pattern, I know this because she uses the statement, and I'm even going to put quotations around it, maybe this won't be so bad after all. Okay, and then I'm going to close my quotation marks. If it's directly from the text, you need to make sure you quote it. And then I'm going to go on to talk about a little ways in the story. Sophia took a turn in her attitude toward the club. I know this because she's saying the statement. So after this turning point, She seemed to really like the club and appreciate the parts of the club activities. Okay, I'm just kind of stretching it here. And then again, I know this because, okay, another one you could say is some of the details from the text. Tell me this because, and then you would go on to say, it states that she pays closer attention during practice. And I have a little typo there. And sings at the top of her lungs. I might even add something like she pays closer. I don't know why it doesn't like that word. She pays close attention, and then practice I spelled wrong, so let me fix that. So I might even go on to say, like, I know that she's more confident now. So using an elaboration is really important. So you'll notice that this is not something real small that I did here. I'm really adding detail, and honestly, I could add even more of my own schema, which is my background knowledge, to about like how I know that when people go through, connecting to people in the clubs, that generally causes them to want to be more confident and be more involved. So I might add details like that. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about using evidence to prove our character change over time. And that's just one strategy that you could use. So I hope that helps a little bit. And thank you for listening all the way to the end of the lesson. And I will have one of these just like this for you to practice on today's slide. So thank you again and have fun with it.